Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted, the podcast that examines the latest issues related to organized retail crime and how retailers and policymakers are fighting back against today's organized crime syndicates. In this episode, we're going to dive into how smarter data and sharper analytics are helping retailers stay ahead of organized retail crime and where technology companies fit into that frontline strategy. Our conversation today is with Russ Hawkins, and that's coming up right after this word from our sponsor. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with LVT, securing physical environments through intelligent automation. Learn more at lvt.com. That's lvt.com. Russ Hawkins is the president and CEO of Agilence, a leading SaaS analytics company helping retailers turn data into action. With more than 35 years in tech, Russ brings a sharp strategic lens to loss prevention, connecting the dots between operations, data, and the fight against organized retail crime. Russ, thanks so much for spending some time with us today.
Marty, very good to meet you, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, let's start with the perception shift. How has the role of loss prevention changed in the eyes of retail leadership, especially as ORC becomes more organized and more costly?
Well, first of all, it's getting more respect. I mean, there was a time when loss prevention was not something anybody even wanted to talk about, right? But it has, through the evolution of the industry, the evolution of the profession, the loss prevention executives have gained a place at the table, and they've impressed upon leadership that, this isn't necessarily about, tackling people in parking lots. This is about using all the data that you have across the whole spectrum of your operations. We like to think of it as total retail loss rather than, specifically some shoplifter, some random shoplifter coming into the business. And with ORC, of course, these are, highly skilled, very well trained, although it's their own internal training, and these are meticulously planned efforts that they're putting forth. And so to be effective in fighting against organized retail crime, you need the attention of the senior management and the willingness to try new things.
So your company helps other companies mine insights from the data they already have. What kinds of patterns or red flags are most predictive when it comes to organized retail crime activity?
Well, so what we do is we kind of sit in the middle. We bring in data from all different systems that exist out there. So it includes the transaction logs. It includes detail on the employees, detail on the customers, the physical locations. So we know kind of the geo-positioning of these companies and where they're at. We know what kind of product mix they have, oftentimes, we know the loyalty, the actual customers that are working there, and then finally everything that the store or the business sells. In addition to that, we bring in data from the video cameras that may be used. Oftentimes, customers have issues with multiple video cameras, and so they need to be able to deal with different makes and models and those kinds of things. And so we bring all of this stuff together. Some of the newer things are things like license plate readers, and we provide a way for these leaders to understand how these technologies are coming together and what we can learn from them, usually by just asking questions of this giant database that we create.
That's a really interesting approach. Can you walk us through maybe a success story where data led to a breakthrough in uncovering ORC-related losses or behaviors?
So these organizations are large scale, they're coordinated. We're not talking about basic shoplifting here. We're talking about businesses that are in the business of collecting material, collecting high value items, and there's lots of things they're important. Health and beauty aids, personal care items, electronics, those kinds of things. Power tools in home hardware stores and companies like Home Depots and those kinds of places. And so they're very good at what they do, and they they're not using this stuff for personal use. They're turning it into cash, and then they're using that cash usually to fund other criminal activities in what's happening. So what we see is patterns. We see, for example, companies, individual organizations, not companies. These are actual ORC groups that might work down a highway, right? So you might start off literally punching the clock at 8 o'clock in the morning, hitting store number 1 on exit 52, and then store number 2 down the next exit down. And so you can predict where that group is going to work as they go through their day. And as a result of that, you can start to strengthen your defenses as you go further down the highway and further down the line. So you may not be able to catch the first one, but you can learn from each of these instances and then lock things down, or get, if you have security guards or management available, you can put them on the lookout. If you're using license plate readers, you can do things like identify when a known vehicle enters the parking lot. You can, using facial recognition software, know when an individual comes in the door. So we've used this kind of data in a number of situations. The most obvious example that I will give you is when a group of known people come into your store, to be able to use video facial recognition to identify that, and then early engagement with that individual, basically under the guise of customer service. Store manager, or if there's a security guard, which is not often the case, but sometimes, would approach that individual and ask them if they can help them today. And usually, very often, that is enough. They know they're being watched, and that's enough to deter them. They'll leave that store, they'll go on to the next one. And if you can do this systematically, and you have your team well trained, you can stop these things. So we've done that with hardware companies, we've done that with drugstore chains, and it's it is a little bit of an arms race, of course. For every deterrent that comes up, these clever individuals figure out other ways of kind of breaching the defenses.
I want to talk about an organizational chart to an extent here, because loss prevention used to commonly be part of the operations of a company, but now it's tied more to IT, to marketing, even to finance. How should modern retail organizations think about cross-functional collaboration on this issue?
Well, you're pointing out a historic problem, right? The loss prevention people, as I kind of mentioned earlier, haven't always gotten great respect. Very often they've been associated with kind of brute force solutions to problems, whereas when you look at the overall losses, so-called total retail loss, it can encompass every aspect that you already described. It can encompass marketing, it can encompass operations, it can encompass financing. And so what we're seeing is that in the largest organizations and the most enlightened ones, these roles, these leadership roles for asset protection or loss prevention, are being elevated to the C-suite and have a seat at the table. And they're getting great results. In many cases, they're getting really, really good results, and then that feeds upon itself. And there's lots of industry groups that are sharing these ideas. Just last week, I was at a convenience store conference where a bunch of convenience store executives in loss prevention were sharing ideas about how to solve problems and how to present to upper management and how to get that seat at the table. So the entire profession and the entire industry is getting more sophisticated. It's getting more professional, and they're able to increasingly tell their benefits or explain their benefits to the senior management much more effectively than in the past.
From your perspective, how can companies like LiveView Technologies, LVT, right over my shoulder here, bring deployable surveillance and real-time visual analytics to the table? How does a company like Agilence complement what LVT does?
Well, so I think there are kind of 4 areas that make sense, and video systems are very critical in these areas. Video analytics is very critical. The first thing is to understand what's happening, right? So it's kind of the descriptive analytics. So which stores are repeat problems, right? Which stores are getting hit over and over again? What kind of what's the heat map look like across your network of stores? Within a store, what's the heat map look like? What are the most stolen items? What are the times that are most likely to have these kinds of problems? What are the data patterns, so to speak? So the first level there is, what is it? What's happening? And that I describe as descriptive analytics, and video plays a huge role in that. Diagnostic analytics is kind of the second level, and that's kind of why did it happen. And most retailers that I know today have kind of layered defenses. They want to connect incidents to each other. There's a growing use of cooperation with law enforcement to create networks where these companies are sharing their incidents. And this includes things like identifying suspects. What do they look like? What do the automobiles that are being used look like? What do the license plates being look like, which LVT does? What are the methods they use? Once they get on a pathway, they will use the same methods over and over and over again. We got to look at transactions. What are the specific things that are happening at the point of sale? So, there's smash and grab kind of ORC, but there's also things like unreceipted returns and what we call sweethearting, where there's somebody working on the inside that is helping the bad guys do business, either by substituting products, giving away high value products for low value prices, taking returns, applying inappropriate discounts, item substitution. You're buying a chainsaw and you're paying for a ruler in a hardware store. So the whole diagnostic part of it takes in the video data, but then it takes all the transactional data, the operational data, the actual behaviors of the individuals in the business, whether they're internal people like cashiers or customers. Looking at people loitering around exits is another example of that. And then the key is getting ahead of this thing to the point where you can start predicting what's happening. So we use a variety of risk scoring methods about locations, about product, about where the products are placed in the store, what kind of processes are used throughout the store, both in terms of inventory management and sales processes at the cashier level, even customers, knowing who they are. Inventory forecasting is an important part of this thing, and being able to look at the history and to be able to extrapolate history into the future, essentially using historical data to predict future crime. I mentioned behavioral alerting, loitering near exits, concealing items inside a shopping basket, two or more people entering a high-risk area together. All of these things can be predictive of what's going to happen. And then you've got to be able to take those analytics and then have prescriptive actions, a directed action, a specific thing that people ought to do. Knowing when somebody's entering the area, sending a store manager over to, as I mentioned earlier, see if they can help that individual, and immediately start collecting evidence. So there are advanced case management systems. We happen to have one as well that takes video data from companies like LVT. It takes audio data, takes written descriptions of things, transactional data, brings it all together in a single place. And then increasingly today, that information is being shared across retailers with law enforcement. And as a result, it's not just what happens in my stores. I can predict, if I'm a Home Depot, I can predict what's happening potentially at the Lowe's as well. And so if you use those four things, descriptive, diagnostic, prescriptive, and descriptive together, you can make better decisions for long-term investments in the types of technologies that you're going to use in this layered approach that we're talking about.
So technology is really only as good as the people using it. What are the biggest gaps you see in how retail teams are or aren't leveraging the tools at their disposal?
Well, there's a very, very, very wide variety of talent and capability across the kind of the loss prevention landscape. There's many products. Oftentimes companies are, they can't be automatically upgrading all the technologies that they have every year. So it's an imperfect environment. And so every individual company has their own unique gaps. And a lot of it comes down to their technology spending. But very often it's also the quality of the leadership in the loss prevention team and how they think about things. And I think as I mentioned already, we're kind of going through a transition here where in the past it was very much a seat the pants tactile thing, and as technologies have come along, the loss prevention and asset protection organizations have had to invest a significant amount of time and attention in training, in educating people about how these systems work. And of course, these systems aren't stopping. They're not static. They're changing on a dynamic basis. And so there has to be a robust training and development activity inside each of these organizations. And then now today, this is all being assisted significantly by AI. And that is that you don't necessarily have to know how the technology actually works. You can take AI tools, they can take the outputs of these systems, and then they can make them available to you in a way that the average person can understand. We see this even in the development of our business. We're a software company. And, historically, we've had lots of software engineers that do work. With AI now, there's this thing called vibe coding where you just have to have an idea of what you want to do, and the AI will go and direct the code, essentially write the code for us. It's a similar thing in loss prevention. I don't necessarily have to know how video analytics work. I don't really need to have to know how the cameras work. I don't need to know how exception reporting systems work. I can use AI now to bring these together, identify a set of combinations that are likely a source of loss, and then coach the individuals that are there on what actions to take without having to understand all the details of the technology itself. So AI is huge, and it's going to get more and more important as time goes on.
Yeah. AI may be the answer to this next question, but I do want to wrap up by looking forward. What innovations or evolutions in analytics and retail tech will have the biggest impact on combating ORC in the next few years? I imagine AI is part of that answer, if not the entire answer.
Well, AI is absolutely that, but I think that this issue has become such a huge issue that we're developing more and more networks, right? There's state level organizations that are creating incentives for retailers to participate across their usually competitive boundaries to share information. There are national organizations that are doing that. The National Retail Federation is heavily involved. And the technology, these advanced case management systems, are the ones that are allowing kind of a centralized digital repository for all of this data. And it's on that data set that now you would apply the AI, and the AI will start identifying the patterns and provide advice to the leaders of these businesses, as well as law enforcement, on actions to take. Actions to take to stop it all. And that I think is still in its infancy. And the combination of that aggregation of all the data across company lines, participation of the law enforcement organizations, and using AI to distill down to the kind of the germs of total retail loss. That is evolving, and I think we still have a couple of years to go before that reaches its full potential.
Russ Hawkins is the president and CEO of Agilence. Russ, if they want to find more information on Agilence, where do they find you?
We're at agilenceinc.com, so you can reach the company there, and I'm R. Hawkins at agilenceinc.com.
Okay, Russ, thank you so much for your work fighting back against organized retail crime, and thank you for joining us today. That's it for this episode of Retail's Most Wanted. Thanks to our presenting sponsor, LVT. And don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button so you can catch each new episode. We drop a new one every 2 weeks. We're also on X, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You should follow us there. Thanks, as always, for being with us, everyone, and keep up the good fight.